Welcome back to the Westmoreland Sports Network for our Recruiting Thursday feature, brought to you by Sendell Volkswagen in Greensburg. We would love to meet you. Jack Ridenour here with you, and we are now joined by Norwin wrestler and recent Navy wrestling commit, Nate Campbell. Nate, first off, congrats on the commitment. How does this
Thank
feel
you.
to have this decision made and just being able to enjoy the last bit of your senior year?
Yeah, it feels awesome. Last year with the injury, didn't get to wrestle a whole lot. Put a lot of pressure on this season in terms of colleges and just performance. So it feels great to get that out of the way and just focus on wrestling.
Absolutely, man. And most importantly, you get to enjoy that final year of high school because I know
Mhm.
you'll be very busy the next couple years for sure. But I
Yeah.
want to get into your commitment to Navy. What led you to wanting to commit to the U.S. Naval Academy? I mean, what was it about the school, the program, just everything involved with Navy that drew you there?
Yeah, so is everything. Obviously, first is academics, student and then athlete. Academics are bar none, like top of the class, just the best I could possibly get, really. So that was a no-brainer there. And then their wrestling culture is amazing as well. Top program in Division One. Their coach is one of the best coaches of all time. That's pretty cool. Um, the wrestling team has a ton of resources. That and then obviously becoming an officer in the Navy is really cool. I had some relatives that were also in the Navy. I've had some relatives that were also in the service. So just kind of being able to follow in their footsteps is really awesome.
Have you always wanted to serve our country, or is that something that maybe kind of came about a little bit later in life?
Yeah, so it wasn't really always on my mind. I wasn't like ever like opposed to it, but it was never like in terms of a career. It was never kind of like this is what I want to do from day one. But since I started talking to Navy from wrestling, it kind of opened my eyes up to like, wow, this could be a really cool opportunity for me to do all of that.
Now, talk me through a little bit of the process to apply to a naval academy or just any sort of military academy. From what I remember, when I was in high school, I had some kids that went off to Army and Navy, and they had a very separate process. It was very
Yeah.
intense. It was very involved. So, just for people that might not be aware of it, I mean, what's that process like to apply to a school like that?
Yeah, so obviously you have your normal application, like just like grades and all that, like every college. But then you also have the physical aspect. So you have to do like physical tests. You have to do a bunch of those. And then you have to do health screenings. You have to do a ton of those health screenings, go to like doctors. And then on top of that is there's a ton of paperwork you have to fill out just to go to the school, like to make sure you're healthy and able to serve. They go through like all of your medical records. You have to like fill out tons of paperwork on that. So it's a lot of paperwork. I was talking to the coaches. They say that the paperwork and the application is actually like kind of like a part of that process, like to see if you really want to go there. Because I guess it turns a lot of people away because of just like how much paperwork it is. So yeah, it was a lot, but it's good to kind of get that settled.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot. Again,
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, a couple guys, I mean, I think they had like senators writing recommendation
Hmm.
letters. And there was a whole
Yeah.
different process. I just took a test and that was about it. But
Yeah.
that's great that you were able to get through all of that. Now, have you
Mhm.
figured out or have you thought about what you want to specialize while you're in the Navy?
Yeah, so you'll be an officer when you're serving for those 5 years or more if you choose. So I was originally thinking surface warfare officer, which is kind of just like a general officer on a ship. That was kind of the original one. But then after the visit, I was talking to like some of the guys on the team. There's also a bunch of people that go and be Marines officers because if you graduate from the Naval Academy, you have the choice to go to be a Marines officer. And with the Marines officers, if you don't want to be on a ship, you don't have to be. You could be a Marine ground officer and just like kind of stay on the ground. So that's another option that I'm thinking. And then there's kind of like one wild card option. I could be like a cargo pilot, maybe. I never thought of this in my life, but I was thinking if I could be a cargo pilot in the Navy, and then like later on in life, switch to like a commercial pilot. And then that's like another one, but that's kind of like a wild card. So either a surface warfare officer or a marine ground officer.
Well, any decision you make sounds marvelous. And again, I mentioned to you off air, but I'm so impressed by people that want to do this, want to go out and serve our country. I think that people that do that should be revered higher than celebrities, quite frankly, because you guys are the reason why there are celebrities in our country.
Yeah,
So, for everybody here at WSN, a big thank you. And again, we
thank
appreciate
you,
serving our
thank
country.
you.
Absolutely, man. But I want to get into your recruiting process a little bit. I mean, what were some other schools that you were interested in and were also interested in you?
Yeah, so there was some local schools. There was Pitt Johnstown, Seton Hill, St. Vincent, all of those. And then as well, kind of later on into the process, starting the senior season, I got those bigger schools. Some were like WVU, Pitt, Purdue, NDSU, so Northwestern, so kind of those schools. But those were later on in the process. VMI, yeah,
Well, definitely had a lot of choices. And again, I think it's
yeah.
great that you were able to find the one that you felt most comfortable with. Now, when did you start getting into wrestling? I mean, what got you into the sport and how did you find your way to the mat?
So my dad wrestled for 2 years when he was little, nothing crazy. So I think I was 7 years old, first grade. It was one summer. He kind of came up to me and he was like, "Hey, there's a little like summer wrestling camp up at our middle school. Do you want to go try it?" I said, "Yeah, that's fine." I was doing other sports at the time too, so I went up and tried it. And that's when Kurt Phipps was my first ever drilling partner, which is pretty cool. He showed me just like the basics of wrestling. We played some fun dodgeball games, and I just loved it ever since.
I'm glad you bring up Curtis Phipps because a big time name around here, a PIAA champ, doing great
Yeah.
things at Bucknell now. How much did going up against him all the time, especially early in your career, how did that help you and help your development and also in a way maybe push and challenge you on the mat?
Yeah, so there was a ton of practices growing up. Like when I was little, he was in the room, and then also at Young Guns, my wrestling club when I was little, he was also in that room too. So just kind of like being in that same room, that same atmosphere, having those role models that are older than me, like to look up to, I think definitely helped me stay like on the right track with my wrestling, and then along with stuff outside of wrestling too, like being a good person off the mat. So it was definitely a nice person to look up to.
Well, you definitely were able to kind of, I would say, get a one leg up on everybody else going up against somebody like that. And you've carried that with you into high school. And even in your high school career, you've seen a tremendous amount of improvement. And just looking at the
Mhm.
win loss records, I mean, it's been incredible to see your growth over the years. What do you think it's been during your career in high school that you've improved the most that has helped you out the most in wrestling?
I don't. Looking back on it, I don't really know if I did anything like major in one specific area that really like made me improve. But it was those practices I didn't want to go to, those lifts I didn't want to do. You know that I continue to do anyway, and especially in the off season. You know, a lot of kids in the off season they tend to kind of like shut down a little bit, take breaks. Last year, junior season and sophomore season, both of those summers, I think were pivotal moments in my wrestling career, where instead of kind of chilling out in the postseason, I kept hitting the mat hard 4 or 5 times a week. Gym, same thing, 4 or 5 times a week. So I think it was those off seasons to where I was still going hard when everyone else was kind of taking it easy. I think that's what propelled me for success in the postseason for high school.
Well, I think you've carried all that success with you, and in particular during the Beast of the East tournament, where, quite frankly, I
Mhm.
think that's where maybe a lot of things started to open up for you. How
Yeah.
much did that performance at that tournament kind of open your recruitment and catch a lot more eyes?
Yeah, so that was actually the tournament that Navy saw me for the first time. That's kind of how that happened. But that was kind of my first tournament. I knew I could do it last year, like compete at that level, but unfortunately I got injured, so I had to prove it this year. But that tournament made the blood round, lost 3-2 to the number 13 kid in the country. So that, in terms of a confidence level for me, just like skyrocketed my confidence. Just knowing how hard that tournament is. It's the second hardest high school tournament in the country. There's like a round of 128 kids in the bracket. So it's really tough. So me being able to do good there was really good for my confidence, and it kind of just snowballed after that.
How crazy was that time afterwards with schools, coaches, all the sort reaching out to you? I mean, was it ever overwhelming for you?
Um, if it wasn't overwhelming directly after Beast of the East, because at the end of the day, I didn't get on the podium. And what the coaches really look at is the kids who are on the podium. Unfortunately, it kind of sucks for the rest of the kids. Um, but then after that, Powerade was a couple weeks later. I made it to the semifinals of Powerade. That's the third hardest tournament for high school. Made it to the semis, and I ended up getting sixth. So that after that tournament, the phone started blowing up. Schools just started like it's like a different school, like all the time. That's kind of when it got to be like a lot.
Well, you definitely earned it. Again, I mean, having so
Thank you.
many great performances back to back, especially, I mean, that's
Mhm.
really hard to do.
Yeah.
Now, looking ahead before you head off to Annapolis, I mean, what do the next few months look like for you? And when do you have to, because if I'm not mistaken, you have to go there in the summertime and you have like the stuff to do during summer.
Mhm.
So what does that kind of look like for you with you kind of getting prepared to be an officer?
Yeah, so with the Naval Academy being such a smart school, I have to take some prereq classes before I go. So next year will be like a red shirt year for me wrestling, but then it'll also be kind of like a red shirt year for me at the academy. So I'll be at a community college next year taking some prereq classes, and I'm just wrestling with the team. It's like 10 minutes away from the campus. Then I'm just wrestling with the team. I'll do that all next year, and the following year is my first year at the academy. So a benefit of that actually is I don't have to leave and like report to the campus until August, which I think normally, like if you're just going into your freshman year there, I think you have to report a little bit earlier, like June or July. So that gives me a little bit more time at home to spend with my family before I go away, which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. How excited
Mhm.
are you to move away from home and go to college in another state?
Yeah, I hate the weather in Pittsburgh, so I've always wanted to go south. Maryland's a little bit far south, not it's kind of like the same weather, but it's a lot sunnier there, which is good, which is what I like. And because it's on the bay, they don't get as much snow, which is also really good. So it's exciting for me. I'll stay in a team house the first year, so I'll get to know some of the guys in the team. Kind of just like live life as an adult before I go back into the academy. So that'll be like a definitely a refreshing year for me to kind of get out in the open world and see what it's all about.
Definitely a lot of exciting things on the horizon for
Mhm.
you, my friend. So I'm sure that you're
Yeah,
very thrilled for that. But Nate, really appreciate your time today. Before we let you
thank you.
run, want to hear from you. I know that your time at Norwin is wrapping up, but when you leave, what kind of legacy do you hope that you leave behind at Norwin?
Yeah, I hope kids look up like they have someone to look up to that was a good role model that did the right things on the mat, but then more importantly just did the right things off the mat. Like just don't get in trouble, make good decisions with everything really, with social decisions, with decisions that you're like the foods you're putting in your body, like how you're treating your body. All of those is what makes a successful athlete. So I hope when kids look to me, like younger kids, I hope that they can see someone that did the right things on and off the mat to become successful.
Well, I know that you've had some great role models in your career and your
Mhm.
life, and it sounds like you're going to be a great role model for a lot of young knights coming through the ranks. So again, Nate, thanks so much for joining us today,
Thank you.
and good luck. And again, thank you so much for your continued support and your going into the Navy.
Thank you.
That's Navy wrestling commit Nate Campbell. As always, thanks so much for joining us on another Recruiting Thursday feature brought to you by Sendell Volkswagen in Greensburg. We would love to meet you. Make sure you check out our other Recruiting Thursday features we have out now on our YouTube channel. And as always, this is Jack Ridenour signing off, never saying a goodbye, just a see you later, right here and only on the Westmoreland Sports Network.